So, hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this first of many, hopefully, podcasts for health and fitness. Today, we're going to talk about weight loss tips for doctors. So, I'm glad I am Dr. Jonathan Fleur-de-Lis, and I will be your host for today. So, really excited to be here. So, let's discuss. Uh, what I want to do is actually help doctors like myself, overweight, a little bit overweight, or maybe you're possibly obese, or even those who are really thin but want to get a little bit fitter. This is the podcast for you. So today we're going to discuss a little bit about physical activity. We're going to talk about the importance of a good diet. We're going to talk about hunger and cravings, because most of us, although we know what to do, we give in to our hunger, we give in to our cravings. And so the reason we want to talk about health and fitness, because it's really important for longevity. We want to live a long life, and we want to live a long and strong life. And of course, you want to keep yourself beautiful in the process. So, is it a truth or a myth that weight loss is 80% the food you eat and 20% exercise? Well, there is no really accurate journal that says this is the percentage for food and this is the percentage for exercise when you're doing a weight loss activity or program. But the truth is, both are really important. So let's just put it at that. A lot of people think that doctors are really fit and healthy. Doctors exercise regularly. Well, the truth, no. There's actually journals documenting that only 23% of doctors exercise regularly. So, and that means just exercising about 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, only 23%. Now, I don't want you to think that getting that six-pack is your goal, because having a six-pack doesn't really mean that you're fit and healthy. Of course, you may look good, that's for sure, but let's discuss fitness for longevity, because you want to live a long life. And fitness, in terms of longevity, will mean a few things. It'll mean muscular endurance and anaerobic capacity. It will mean that you need a cardiovascular endurance also. Maybe that's in the terms of VO2 max. And it also requires mitochondrial density. And lastly, you want metabolic efficiency and the ability to recover. Because after a long day, you want to go up the next day and start working. So why do we need to be fit and healthy? Obviously, we need to be fit and healthy, not just for ourselves, for our families, for our patients. And what better way to tell patients that we care about the body than taking care of our body? I hope that makes sense. So we've been talking about living a long life, living a strong life. What I want to be clear with is I am talking about a biologic age. That means the age of your cells, the physiology of your cells, compared to your actual chronologic age. I may be about 30 years old, but because of my poor diet, my poor habits or lifestyle, I can be really, really old in terms of my biologic age. I can be 60 years old, because of all the wrong things I'm eating, because I'm not exercising, because of all the stresses in life. And the opposite can be true as well. You could be 50 or 60 years old, but your cells, your biologic age, can be about 30 or 40 years old. And there are tests for this. And I'm going to share with that in the link below. Now, our relationship when we grow old, our relationship with our muscles and our bone structure, we know in general that as we age, in comes low muscle mass or sarcopenia, in comes low bone density. So that means osteopenia and osteoporosis. And these two factors can lead to fractures, which are really, really things that we want to avoid late in life. And this can happen. Believe me, the life expectancy of Filipinos here in the Philippines is increasing. The The ages are from 60 years old, slowly creeping up to about 80 years old life expectancy for Filipinos. And what that means is we are also having an influx, a surge of hip fractures. So it's estimated to be about 150,000 hip fractures by the year 2050. And I will give you the link below. This is actually data from the IOF, the International Osteoporosis Foundation. But it's not just the bones. When I mentioned about muscle mass and sarcopenia, we are also talking about our cardiovascular fitness, cardiomyopathies, heart conditions that can affect you as you age. So how should we be when we age? There's an interesting person that I would like to introduce to you, although she's not on this podcast, and that, my friends, is Joanna Class. She is 95 years old and she's still doing gymnastics. She's still doing gymnastics at 95 years old. Of course, I will be sharing you a link below to Joanna Class, and correct me if I'm wrong, but she's probably the oldest gymnast in the world. So now we're going to go into hunger and cravings because, like I mentioned earlier, doesn't matter how much we know as doctors that we're not supposed to eat that anyway because it really looks good. Oh, that burger, wow, that burger, that steak, those fries. So certain hungers. And I'm going to talk about a few of them here. One is nutritional hunger. And that nutritional hunger can be because you aren't consuming or eating that nutrient or food regularly. And this has been shown to be true in studies where people eat a lot of rice in Japan and not enough protein. So you will have a craving for certain proteins or meat. There's emotional hunger. And it has been proven that negative emotional states, the fact that you actually yearn for that person's touch or even that person's smile, that person's voice, emotional states can actually affect your hunger, my hunger, anyone's. So there's an actual association between eating and depression, and this should focus really on regulating our emotions. If we are not able to regulate our emotions, we may end up with an emotional hunger that cannot be dealt with by just eating. We're gonna eat anyway. So, Mike, what are the tips that I can give you for emotional hunger? Because it's an emotional dysregulation, you could simply use mindfulness, and we're gonna discuss a little deeper on mindfulness. But here's a little trick: you can stop, and that is an acronym STOP. You just stop what you're doing, take deep breaths, observe, and label what you are actually feeling. Like this is sadness. This is anger. I miss someone. And then when you are ready, proceed. You may find that your hunger may dissipate. Okay. Now, there's also what we call low sugar hunger when we have hypoglycemia. And that will lead us to become really hungry, irritable, or, hungry and angry. So hypoglycemia is a strong physiological and psychological stressor. And cortisol spikes occur during this time to give us more sugar. But cortisol is also that stress hormone that gives us that feeling of stress and anxiety that we feel inside. So that is the other hunger. We got low sugar hunger, emotional hunger, nutrient hunger. And my tip for you really, if you have a lot of low sugar hunger, if you're angry and irritable all the time, avoid simple sugars in your diet because I know they're delicious. You feel really full after eating these simple sugars, but of course you feel hungry afterwards. I mean, you need to eat something more nutrient dense. Now, the other hunger is water hunger. The truth is, you can actually mistake your thirst for hunger when you're walking around and then suddenly you're sweating and you don't realize it. But when you see that food from the cafeteria or that fast food chain, you suddenly feel hungry. That may actually be thirst. So there is an absence of association between between hunger and food and then thirst. And this is why when you are thirsty, your body may perceive that thirst as hunger. So you want to eat something. And my tip for you, please take 8 glasses of water a day because underhydration is a real thing. When I say underhydration, this is low water intake in the absence of a total water body deficit. So your body doesn't really lack water, but there's a homeostatic mechanism that has been activated, which means your vasopressin is elevated and the other urine markers are elevated. So when you take glasses of water a day, don't gulp them up. Slowly sip them down. And that way you may want to do this for about 10 to 15 minutes before grabbing a bite of food. Sipping water down, and you may realize that, okay, you're not hungry anymore. So that's another tip for me. And of course, this is something that's really hard, really difficult, but if you actually notice, certain foods make us feel really good when we're eating them, that burger, that pizza. But what we do not understand is that later 3 hours down, you don't feel so good. You feel tired. Maybe your mouth has a certain aftertaste, you know? And after 4 or 5 hours, you have stomach cramps. So even if that certain food that you ate tasted really good, down the line, it may not be that good for your body. And you can also, and some of us, not all of us, have a angel or devil or a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality telling us here that, oh, eat that ice cream. No, don't eat that ice cream. It's bad for you. You're lactose intolerant. So these are things that can happen. You have a dialogue with yourself, talking about what the food can actually do to you. This is a tip because most of the eating that we do is subconscious. There's food, you grab it. So creating consciousness with the food that we eat is actually one step that we can do so that we can create an awareness of how we are actually eating foods, whether that food is good for you or bad for you. And because our thinking patterns affect our eating behavior, you know, every time you feel depressed, you eat, or every time you have a win at work, you eat. Maybe that's your pattern. Or maybe when people get together during parties and celebrations, you overeat. If you have these patterns, you can identify. You can actually do something about these patterns. So that's really important. And the other tip you may want to do is actually have a food journal, a food timeline. You create that timeline that I mentioned a while ago of how food makes you eat during the first bite, during the second bite. What about the third bite? What about 1 hour after eating? What about 2 hours after eating? You will find that a lot of the foods don't actually make you feel that good hours after eating. You may find that your eating is automatic after the first few bites, which means you can't stop. You're just eating and eating and eating those chips and chips until you finish the whole pack. Okay? So you can try to keep a food journal. I know it's a little bit of work, but it works. You can have your fitness apps. Of course, there are certain fitness apps that have been studied, and they can actually help you achieve weight loss. I'm going to give you a link on the description below. And the other thing is mindfulness. So this is really something that's popping up everywhere. Mindfulness and meditation. So being present and being aware, taking your time when you eat, these are things that are really important. As we become aware of the food that we eat, as we become aware of how we eat our food, we are also becoming aware of how food truly makes us feel. What I mean is, even as we watch commercials, even if we've never tasted that food before, certain commercials link certain emotions to that food. That commercial that shows us that after a hard day, the two spouses get together again, eating that ice cream together. And so you link a positive emotion to that food even before you've tasted it. So mindfulness is one tip for you. Use all your senses and truly understand what that food makes you feel. Slow down. And these are things that we talk about for fitness, longevity, and beauty, because we want to live a long life. We want to live a strong life. We want to keep our bodies beautiful in the process. And aside from just controlling our cravings, we go a little deep and talk about exercise. We talk about exercise as a way to keep ourselves fit. Now, each person has a different body, which means we need to have a unique, personalized exercise prescription. You can't just follow everything that you see online, every exercise routine. If you have a preferred exercise, that means when we personalize our exercise, you need to have what you prefer, what modality is best for you, what is the intensity that is best for you, what is the frequency and duration of that exercise. These are things that you can incorporate into your daily routine because you want to make it easy. You want to make it something that you can do every day. And of course, for a personalized exercise, you want to have a stretch and mobility routine to keep yourself limber. Now, if you're the type of person who is into endurance sports like an Ironman or marathon running, please do check your heart, which means I myself, before I do an Ironman or a half Ironman, I go to a cardiologist. I have my do a treadmill stress test every year just before a race, just to keep myself, to make sure that I'm fit for this. Okay, so that means each person has a individualized personal prescription. Not everyone should be doing the same thing. Now, it's really, really popular. 10,000. You need to walk 10,000 steps. And really, 10,000 steps is about 8 kilometers. Everyone's talking about that. But wait, stop. 1,000 steps is not really the minimum effective dose for exercise. That's a little bit too much. And 10,000 steps is actually marketed because there was a pedometer that was called 10,000 steps meter in Japan. That's why it became really popular. But the truth is, a lot of medical guidelines will tell us you only need about 150 minutes of moderate exercise per week. 150 minutes is about 20 minutes a day or about 2.5 hours per week of exercise. So that's all you need. Now, when we talked about fitness, I will review the things that we talked about: muscular endurance and anaerobic capacity, cardiovascular fitness and mitochondrial density, and metabolic efficiency and recovery. So we're going to get into detail. First, let's start off with cardiovascular fitness. We can measure this as VO2 max. And what is VO2 max? It's really the maximum amount of oxygen that you can utilize, and that is a determinant of your anaerobic fitness. And a really quick exercise, like for doctors who are really have not a lot of time on their hands, is a high intensity interval training. That's something that you may do. You want to rise your heart rate to about 80 to 90%. And when you do HIIT, you can do a HIIT of 4 minutes, followed by 4 minutes of rest, and then repeat that for 5 sessions or 5 times. So that's about 20 minutes of HIIT training per day. That is a minimum effective dose for cardiovascular fitness. 4 minutes, 4 on, 4 off, times 5, that's 20 a day. And you only need this for about every 2 weeks. That's the minimum for cardiovascular fitness. But for muscular endurance, Again, there's a specific HIIT meaning high intensity interval training called Tabata. This is actually an exercise by Mr. Izumi Tabata from Japan. A very effective and high intensity intermittent training method where you go really hard for about 20 seconds and then you go and stop for another 10 seconds. So 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off. Repeat that 8 times. And that's equivalent to 4 minutes of Tabata. And you only need minutes of Tabata exercise every day. There are studies which mention that 4 minutes of Tabata is equivalent to 60 minutes of moderate intensity. There are actually studies that mention the benefits of continuous endurance exercise compared to your high intensity exercise. The benefits are actually the same when you look at them together. What benefits do I mean? I mean your utilization of glucose. I mean your fat oxidative capacity, slow twitch muscle function, and increased mitochondrial density. Except that they work through different pathways versus continuous endurance. So you can try Tabata. All you need is 4 minutes a day and 2 to 4 times a week. You burn because when you do Tabata, there is or EPOC, excessive post-exercise oxygen consumption. So even if you're not exercising, your body is still burning those fats, okay? So let's continue. We're gonna talk about sprint. You want a constant intensity. So the speed or effort that you're putting in at the start of the exercise should be the same intensity as when you end the exercise, but you should be really tired at the end of the exercise. It could be jumping jacks, it could be squats, it could be even cycling. Cycling is actually the first study by Izumi Tabata. So what are the other things that we can do for rapid health? Well, you could do a 30-minute walk. Of course, this is best done before you have your breakfast. You are doing a fasted type of exercise. You could start 5 minutes a day, then later, the next day, you could do 10 minutes, then later you could do 15 minutes. So add 5 minutes every day until you get to about 35 minutes of walking. And this can be your daily prescription for exercise as doctors before you eat breakfast, if possible. And afterwards, you can give yourself a big cold glass of water, or you could give yourself a cold shower. That way you can recover. Cold water actually helps with the recovery, okay? So that's a quick biohack for activity and health. So when you actually make an exercise routine, my tip for make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy and satisfying. Okay, don't give yourself a hard time. Prepare those exercise materials at night. When you wake up, you see your shoe, perfect. I can do a run, a walk. You want to put your dumbbells if you want to do weights on the side so that you can use them right away. That is making it attractive. Clean them up, make it easy. You see them right away. Make it satisfying. Give yourself a good breakfast, cold water, shower afterwards, and you will be able to continue this every day. Because what you want is a habit that sticks. And studies have shown a minimum of 66, a minimum of 365 days is necessary to actually form a habit. Habit meaning the activity becomes automatic. Neural pathways have been created in the brain. And the last tip is you can stack different activities as a habit stack. Do your walk, brush your teeth, do your shower, then make your bed, go to work. Do that every day, creating a habit stack. You can even do the walk as part of your rounds when you do rounds in the hospital before breakfast. Create a routine that is easy for you and that you can stack different things together. That way, I hope this has been of value. I hope that you form your own exercise prescription. And I hope to see you again soon. This has been a great first episode. If you have questions, you can get cebubonmd@gmail.com. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.